It's episode 198 of the Author Stories podcast. I'm your host, Hank Garner. Today's episode is sponsored by Tales from the Canyons of the Damned. Episode 16 is out of Tales of the Canyons of the Damned. It consists of 5 sharp, suspenseful, and thought-provoking short time travel-themed stories, each from a different featured master of speculative fiction. There's a link to it in the show notes. Also, Dominion Rising. If you listened to last week's episode, you can really delve into what this giant 23 all-original science fiction epic fantasy novel box set is all about. It's on pre-sale right now for only 99 cents. Dominion Rising, nearly 8,000 pages and over 1 million words in total. Go pick it up today. A link in the show notes. Also, Galactic Satori Chronicles by Paul E. Hicks and Breaker. Galactic Satori Chronicles brings you a thirst for revenge, which sends a man on a deadly journey through the galaxy in the adrenaline-pumping new novel Galactic Satori Chronicles. There's 2 out now. Book 1 is Earth and Book 2 is Kron. They carry the Author Stories seal of approval. I'd also like to thank my good friend Ed Gosney for sponsoring the show. Ed's blog, Cool Comics in My Collection, is a must-read for me every single week. You can find it at edgosney.com. Ed's also a fantastic writer, and if you're looking for a great beach read, also click on his link in the show notes where you can land on his Amazon page and pick up one of his novels. Also, at the end of the show, we're going to have a clip from Richard Gleave's Jason Crane series. You'll want to stick around for that. Before we get into our interview today, we're going to have a short word from Amy Hale about her new book series, The Shadows Trilogy. Also, episode 200 is just around the corner, just 1 week from today. If you would like to submit an audio clip for me to play on there, send it to hankgarner@gmail.com. We've got a lot coming in, and I'd like to include a clip. If you've got something to say about the show or maybe some of the guests that we've had, be sure to send it in. I would really appreciate it. As always, subscribe to the show. The links are in the right-hand sidebar at hankgarner.com. And as always, thank you for listening.
The Shadows Trilogy from Amy Hale. All 3 books are now available on all ebook platforms as well as paperback. Colt Henderson is a man who lives for the moment. His past has taught him that life is unpredictable and often disappointing. A confirmed bachelor, he believes that love only exists in fairy tales. She's lost, scared, and can't remember a thing about her past or her identity. She senses all is not as it should be, but without her memory, how does she know what to fear and what to trust? Because of her status as a Jane Doe, she names herself Jane and works to put her life back together. In the process, she learns that she possesses unique abilities that certain people will kill for. Fate throws Colt and Jane together, but they both have a lot to learn about forgiveness and acceptance. Colt's determination and Jane's remarkable gifts will send them on a journey that they never expected. To survive, they will need each other, but sometimes facts are scarier than fiction, and the truth is better left unknown. The Shadows Trilogy by Amy Hale. Pick up the entire trilogy today.
Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I'm very pleased to have Fredrik Backman on the show with me. A lot of you probably know him from his New York Times best-selling book, A Man Called Ove, and which has been made into a movie, which was an international hit. And he has a new book out called Beartown. Welcome to the show, Fredrik.
Thank you.
Yeah. Fredrik, I begin each show with the same question, and that question is, what is your first memory of wanting to be a writer or a storyteller?
I don't know about wanting to be. I mean, I never wanted to be. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, my first big storytelling experience was The Brothers Lionheart by Astrid Lindgren. My mother read that to me when I was 6. My grandfather had just passed away. And my mother, cleverly enough, she thought that she would read, because it's about the book is about it's a storybook for children, but it's a big adventure about death, this place where two kids get when they die, and there's a ton of adventures there, and she read that to me, probably to open up for questions about death, and that was probably my biggest. I think I decided to become a storyteller. It's just that had such a huge impact on me. What stories could do that it probably propelled. And then after that, the whole thing with writing was just that I was a weird kid. So I had a problem with communicating with. No, I had a problem communicating with people, and I was always, I was always too much or too little. It was always, there are no in between levels with me. I'm either 0 or 100 all of the time, and I kind of figured out somewhere, and when I was like 7 or 8 or 9 or something, that if I write things down, I can edit it, and it's easier for me to communicate with people. And so I started when I was angry at my dad or something. I would leave him a stern letter, so we wouldn't fight. We would have these really, really angry conversations via post, and which probably carried on. We still communicate mostly. We live in the same building, but we still communicate mostly through email and texts. So that I think that was. I don't know if that answers your question, but that was probably where it began.
Yeah, your mother was obviously a very wise woman in sharing that story with you to kind of open up the conversation about grief and that in what I've read of your writing in A Man Called Ove and now in Beartown that I'm reading, you really tackle these difficult subjects, but sometimes wrap them in a little bit of humor or in kind of the dressings of mundane life that allow us to kind of all relate to the stories while getting to something deeper. Is that something conscious that you do, or is that just kind of grown out of that thing that started with your mother?
I don't know. Really, that's a lot of questions in one. No, I don't know. I don't know where. I don't know where stories come from.
Yeah.
And I don't. I don't purposely set out to. I don't purposely set out to do one thing or another. I think I like a lot of different kind of stories, so it's kind of natural that I try to write different kinds of stories. Yeah. I think, and the whole thing with, the breakthrough for me as a writer came when I understood that I wasn't special. Because up until that point, when you're young and you're trying to write stuff, you're trying to be super original. That's your whole. Well, I have to write something that no one has ever done before, and right. You try to be super deep and you try to be something you're not. And then, my breakthrough was when I figured out that, I'm a very, very normal person. I live a very, very normal, uninteresting life, and that's my thing. That's what I got going for me, because when I write things that I like, the chances are good that a lot of other people's will as well, because my taste is probably pretty close to a lot of people's taste, and so I think that was my breakthrough, really, that I figured out that I don't have to be. I don't have to be tried to be something I'm not. I can just. I
love
write.
That because.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think as we're always looking for that thing that sets us apart, and the thing that no one else has done before. Yeah. But you you have proven that being true to yourself is the thing that people really resonate with. They love the honesty and the integrity in what you're writing.
No, I would hope. I would hope. I don't know why. I think people read things for a lot of different reasons. And that you can't really. You can never analyze why people read one thing and not the other, and why people like something. And I think the only thing is that if something is genuine, if someone means it, then you're gonna feel it. You're gonna know it. It's just people have a bullshit radar for popular culture that is just. I mean, if you can hear two people sing a song, and one of them just sings it, and you feel nothing, and then someone else comes up on stage and sings the exact same song, but means it, and you can hear it in their voice. That you can hear the pain in their voice, and you can hear their heart breaking, and then that resonates with people. Then you feel something because you feel it's honest and it's genuine, and you feel like this person means it. And I think that's the only. I mean, I heard a quote. There's a writer. I can't remember what writer now. I have to check that up. But there was a writer who said that a book can break any rules as long as it's alive, and that's that's what I'm going for all the time. I'm not trying to do everything like someone would teach it. It's just I'm trying to write something that I feel something for, and I'm trying to just get that same feeling across to someone else.
Your website says that you used to drive a forklift, but during that time you started a blog, and it was through that blog that you started kind of delving into fiction. Why did you start a blog? What was it about you that wanted to start writing in that medium and just start publishing your thoughts?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's a slightly longer story than that, but I did drive a forklift.
Is.
I had I did drive a forklift. My friend got me a job. I decided at 25 that I was gonna try to make a living off of writing. I didn't have an idea that I would become an author. That was not a goal. I just thought that maybe I can make a living writing, and that would be awesome. I could write anything. I mean, I wouldn't care. And my friend got me a job as a forklift driver. He's the manager, and then I did that. So I worked nights and weekends. So I had the days off to write, and I could write for free for magazines, and that's how I got into the magazine business. Because that's how you get a job. You say, I'll work for free. And they're like, yeah, all right. You get moved to the top of the pile. And that's how I got into magazine writing, and I got more gigs, and I got some columns, and I worked my way up a little bit. And then there was a magazine that asked me if I wanted to start a blog because I was getting married, and there was this women's magazine that said, well, that would be fun if you had it. There was just the beginning of the blog era. No one really knew what a blog was. It was just, it was this anarchy on the internet at that day. So they said, well, do you want to start a blog at our website and blog about the wedding planning? It's like, sure. So I did that, and it was just a very annoyed, frustrated blog about the price of flowers and choosing chairs for a wedding and stuff like that. And and it got fairly popular. And then out of that grew another blog, and out of that blog grew this this idea of a character that I had been thinking about for a long time. That it was this man who had been retired against his will, and who is just really angry with everything and everyone, and I started finding these funny anecdotes, and some of it started with my dad. So I would write about, me and my dad going to IKEA, which we did, and my wife had just gotten our first child, and me and my dad was at IKEA a lot, and my dad would argue with me like over principles, and I started writing these things down, and then people who read the blog started replying like, "Oh, this is something that my dad does," and they started telling their own stories about their husbands and dads and moms, and people, they just started telling stories about people who are really set in their ways, who have these routines that are super important to them, and out of that grew something that I felt that this is funny. This is a funny character, but there's a story there that I think could be good. And so I started. I had absolutely no idea how to write a novel. I had no clue. So I just took it chapter for chapter and just went with it, which is probably good, because if I had known how to write a novel, I wouldn't have written it like that. There would have been rules, but I didn't know. Ignorance is bliss when you're starting out.
For sure. And was that book what then became A Man Called Ove?
Yeah.
Yeah. At what point in the writing of that book did you kind of realize what the story was going to be? I know a lot of times when you have a kernel of an idea and you begin writing it, there comes a point in the writing where you kind of discover, okay, this is what this book is about. Kind of how far into it were you when that realization came?
I think with that book, it was pretty early on that it was supposed to be, it was about grief and loneliness, but told in a comedic setting. That I wanted it to be funny and entertaining, but I wanted it to be about something real. But it's about, grief and loneliness, and trying to move on when you really don't want to. And so I think that came pretty early on. I think with some of the other books, it took me, takes a bit longer. I mean, sometimes you need to. I mean, with Beartown, I think I rewrote the first 100 pages 7 times before getting anywhere, and before I found out what the tone was, what it was that I wanted to, what the story was that I wanted to tell, and. But with Ove, I think that came pretty early on, that this is a story about loneliness and grief.
I think a lot of people will be very comforted in knowing that Beartown is like your 5th novel. Is that right?
I'm sorry?
And is Beartown your 5th novel? Is it number 5?
Let me count. Yes. It would be, yes. Yeah. It would be, it would be. If you can, I released a short novel. I think it's called a novella. I think it's called in the U.S. So if you count that, it's 5. Yeah.
Right. I think a lot of people will take comfort in knowing that someone that's had the amount of success that you've had and has written books that are so powerful and resonate with readers so well that. Even on your 5th book, it's still a chore and a struggle sometimes to get the story right and to find out exactly what it is that you want to say. I think a lot of people will take comfort in that.
No, but it is. I mean, that's the craft. I mean, it's. I don't mean to sound pretentious or anything, but you get to a certain point where you realize that I keep putting myself in a position where I have, people. I keep putting myself in a position where I'm stressed, or where I have deadlines, or where I'm like, I have to finish the book. And people ask me like, well, why do you have to write? Why do you do it? Why do you, why do it if it's hard? I'm like, well, you need to do it because it's hard. That's the craft. That's the thing. And the thing is that whenever you're comfortable, whenever you feel like, oh, I'm writing a story now that I could write in my sleep. That it's not hard anymore. It's not. Then you need to write something else because you're not evolving and you're not feeling anything. And it's supposed to be hard because when you read a really good novel, if you read something that really means something to you, you feel something. You have all these powerful emotions. I mean, and in order to make a reader cry, there's no way of. I can't think of a way that someone would read a book and cry if the author didn't cry writing it. I can't think of a way that would work. I think Grant Morrison, who worked on, who wrote Batman. He writes what do you call it? The comics.
Yes.
The Batman comics. Yeah, he was,
yes.
And he's done a bunch of other fantastic stuff. He's a brilliant.
I'm a huge Grant Morrison fan.
Yeah, and I mean he's fantastic, and I think there's this documentary about him where he said someone asked him like, how is that possible that you would write something that would make me, who have never met you, cry? And he said, I don't remember the exact quote, but he said something like, I can only assume that that's an extension of me crying when I wrote it. And
wow.
And that's that's really hard to explain to people, and it's really hard to explain. I mean, when people who want to write, want to tell stories, and they ask like, how do I become a writer? Well, you write. That's the only way. I mean, how do I get my book published? I mean, don't worry so much about getting your book published. Write the book, and feel something for it, because you have to. And that's the hard part, and that's why it's difficult, and that's why it doesn't matter if you've written. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's my fifth novel, because it's still really hard, because it's still, it's still me trying to feel things that are difficult, and digging into parts of yourself that you might not. I mean, most people don't. Most people don't go to work aspiring to make themselves cry, and that's a weird job. And you're gonna, there are gonna be days when that's, it's really hard to write something that's horrible or really, heart-wrenching for you as a writer. And then then it's 5 o'clock. You go pick up the kids, and you go home and you try to have a normal family life. Sometimes that's hard, and it's supposed to be. Yeah. And that's the job. That's the craft.
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to our very primal beginnings, as a species, that we have to toil with the ground, we have to work hard to make something good. And even though we live lives of relative luxury now compared to our ancestors, there's still something very rewarding about doing the hard thing that makes something very good come out of that. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's still. I mean, this is still my dream existence. I mean, I wouldn't. I would never compare writing to like having having a real job like I had before, because I was, I was driving a forklift and lifting crates of melons all day long, and that's physical labor in a way that I haven't been doing for a while now.
Sure.
But it's still there's still something there to. I think I'll get worried if I start feeling that it's easy. I think
Sure.
that'll worry me, that if I start feeling that this is not hard anymore, because then there's something wrong. And if I don't care, no one else will. I think that's
right.
And it is hard. I mean, it's hard for everyone, and I think experienced writers sometimes don't do new writers, up-and-coming writers, any favors, because some writers give off this perception that writing is easy at some point. That there's going to be a day where, now you're successful, so now it's easy. It's never easy. If you want to do something good, something that people actually care about, that's never easy. It's still scary, and I always think that this book that I'm writing right now is going to be my last. This is what's going to end my career. This is where, and
right.
You always have this feel that this is people find out that I'm a fraud, that I don't really know what the hell I'm doing. This is where they found out. This is where they call my bluff.
Right.
And that makes you work harder. That makes you go back and edit it one more time, and that makes you think about it harder and question yourself, and Google that last piece of research.
Or even if you get past the thinking, even if you get past thinking I'm a fraud, a lot of times as writers will think, I could never write another book after this. I've put every idea I've ever had about everything into this book. What else could I ever write about? And then that book is finished, and then ideas just seem to come out of nowhere. And it's funny how that works.
Yeah, because I think ideas make more ideas. I think that's how creativity works. That's my only theory. That you can't hold on to ideas. You have to give everything you got. I mean, it's like sports.
Right.
I mean, you can't go into a game and thinking about the next game. You have to play this game, and you have to give this game everything you've got. And that's the only way of doing it. At least for me. I don't know how.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're supposed to be, when you finish the book, you're supposed to be all out. Like you're supposed to have this feeling of, I'm done.
Right.
But then
Yeah.
you go to bed. You go up the next morning and you think, now what? And you start all over again. And that's what makes it, that it makes it very, very hard to understand for people who don't love writing, but it's very, very easy to understand for people who do. That why would you do that? Why would you put yourself through that, mentally and emotionally, just draining yourself of every emotion, and then as soon as it's done, you go up the next day and you're like, well, off to the next one. And you do all over again. Like, why would you put yourself through that? Because it's a love. It's just, this is the only thing that I've ever wanted to do, really. It's fun. And it's, and it's not always easy, but it's still, it's a passion. And I think people either understand that or they don't. They either have that in themselves or they don't, and that's just the way it is. So I find that I can always explain this to people who like music, because it's like the love of an instrument. It's people who play guitar, who really loves playing guitar, and they and they're at a party and they walk into a room and there's a guitar on the wall. At some point during the night they're going to play that guitar, because they can't help themselves. To just
right.
And they're just going to play a little bit because it's nice, because they like playing. It's just enjoyable. You like the feeling of a guitar in your hand, and that little and that's what writing is to me.
Let's talk about your new book for a minute, Bear Town.
Sure.
First off, this book is absolutely gorgeous in its look. The cover design is phenomenal and instantly kind of sets you in a mood. But when I cracked the book open, the entire first chapter is 2 sentences long, and it begins like this. Late one evening toward the end of March, a teenager picked up a double-barreled shotgun, walked into the forest, put the gun to someone else's forehead, and pulled the trigger. This is the story of how we got there. That opening paragraph, the 2 sentences, just absolutely wrecked me. In that I was completely hooked. There's no way I could not read that book after that. That was kind of where did the idea to tell this story? It's a little bit different storytelling than you've done in the past, in that you the central character is a town instead of this one person that you're following and kind of peeling back the layers of. What made you want to tell this kind of story?
I don't know, really. That's really hard to explain. I had this idea that I wanted to tell a story about sports. I wanted to tell a story about, what it has meant for me growing up, because sports is just, I fell in love with sports at the same time I fell in love with books, because they're stories. Sports are stories you'll ever find in sports. The life stories, that's where you get it. But I also wanted to tell something about, the darker side of sports, the darker side of this elite thinking and this win or die attitude that surrounded me so much when I did sports. And I wanted, out of that grew an idea that I might be able to tell a story about a town, so I can tell a lot of different stories, that intertwine with each other. And I had never done that. This actually started. The original idea was a screenplay for a TV series. So I started writing it as a script, and I think that, if you read the book knowing that, that probably shines through a little bit, that, this was originally thought as a TV series, because this was, because there's a lot of different characters and we move in and out of scenes. It's written really in scenes, and there's a lot of dialogue, and then I wrote 4 episodes, I think, and then I just realized that I couldn't work with TV people. It was just horrible, because but it was just, it takes so long for a decision to be made, for there are so many things that just kills the creative process. It kills it. And at that point, I think my wife and my agent and everyone around me who knows me said, well, maybe you should just go sit alone in a room and write it as a novel, just the way you want it, and then we'll talk to the TV people. And so that's what I did. So I just decided to write it as a novel instead. And that was also, you find little things. This was the first time that I had multiple viewing points, because up until this point I had only written about one character, and we follow that character all through the book. So it's just, it's one camera, so to speak. And this was something else, that I have 10, 12, 15 characters that I swap between them. And, and you find out little things that you have less time to build each character, so you have to be more to the point. You have to be more specific with each one. But it also, you also find out that, wow, when you all only have one character, movement takes a lot of time. And that's something that I just discovered. And that's my fifth novel. And that's a discovery that you can make. So, wow, movement takes a lot of time. If you're only going to write about one character, you have this, oh, so this character is going to the store now. Okay, and the next scene is in the store. Do I need to tell the readers how this character got to the store? Do we need to be in the car with the character? Do we need to be there when the character decides to go to the store? Is that important? How much? Because you can't just jump with, if you have one character, you can't just, all of a sudden he's at the store. That doesn't work. You have to have a flow to it. And that takes a lot of time and energy to just move that character around. But as soon as you have multiple characters, it's, well, this character is at home, and now we switch to another character. When we get back, this character is at the store. And people are going to be, the reader is going to be fine with that, because, well, we left him, and he went to the store, apparently, and now it's at the store. That's fine. So it's little things like that that makes it, you realize, like, wow, I'm still learning so much. Fifth novel, I'm still having these huge realizations that wow, this is how it works. This is how this kind of storytelling works, and that's a kick.
Absolutely. Beartown is an absolutely stunning book. It is. I told you it captivated me from page one and carries all the way through. It's so familiar. And I think that goes back to what you said at the beginning about, writing instead of trying to do the thing that no one else has done, do the thing that everyone knows, but do it so well and anchor it so deeply that the reader just falls right into the story. Like it's so immersive. I just wanted to thank you for the book. I think it's absolutely stunning, and I think it will be as huge a success as your previous works. I encourage everyone to go out and get a copy of Beartown. Before I let you go, how has your creative process changed since you have since you've seen the success that you have? Has that changed your daily writing process and the way you look at, quote, the business of writing and publishing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of things have changed. I mean, first of all, I make a living out of writing now, and that changes a lot.
Yeah.
And that's and to me that was a blessing, because I get to spend a lot of time with my kids. I mean, I get to have this as a full-time job, and then I go home from work like every other dad and just go home and be with my kids. That's so I mean, that's a blessing. And then then a lot of other things change, and you learn along the way. I mean, you have to, because there is a business part of it, and that some days that can drain you, and you can feel squashed by it, and that doesn't change. I mean, that doesn't change no matter what level you're on. or how successful you are, that doesn't change. Those feelings are always the same. The feelings I had starting out, the feelings of doubt, that the low self-esteem, and the points where you're thinking like people are gonna find out that I'm a fraud. That doesn't change. It's the same with the fifth novel that it was start out. It really does. You just learn to handle it a little bit different, and you kind of learn to enjoy it a little bit more. You learn to enjoy the process. You learn to feel like, well, this is how it is. This is part of it, and I think I'm at a point now where I have the luxury to feel that, all right, I choose to do this because I want to be as good as I can at it. I want to find out more about the craft. I want to learn more. I want to try to write new kind of stories and just be better at it. And it's a craft, and it's such a blessing, because most things, if you're really good at them, you can't do them in your entire life. I mean, a lot of things, if you're really good at sports, well, you have very few years where you can be really, really good at sports. But this is something that you can get. I mean, writing is something that you can get better at for your entire life. I mean, you can be a much better writer when you're 80 than you were at 25. And most things doesn't work like that. That's probably the way I view it now. That's my luxury. I can just do this for the pure fact that I want to be really, really good at this craft. I want to look back when I'm when I'm old. I want to look back and say, this is how I spent my life. I spent my life trying to be really, really, really good at this one thing, and I gave it everything I had. And so that was probably where I'm at.
Well, Fredrik, the new fantastic, and if you're not familiar with Fredrik Backman's work, there's going to be a link in the show notes where you can go pick up his books, and I think that you will instantly fall in love with his work like I have. Fredrik, thank you for taking time to come on the show, and I wish you success on the book tour. You just landed in the States, and thank you so much for taking time to come on the podcast with me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Stay tuned now for a clip from the Jason Crane series by Richard Glebes. There's a link to the entire series in the show notes. As always, tune in every Tuesday and Friday for new episodes of the Author Stories podcast. Find all of the archives at hankgarner.com. Now on to our clip from the Jason Crane series by Richard Glebes.
Jason and Joey took their food trays outside and sat high above the parking lot on the secluded stairwell that had become their lunchtime hangout, picking at their Thanksgiving specials and swapping updates. They were almost finished eating before Jason managed to screw up the courage to say what he needed to. "I want to apologize." Joey looked puzzled. "What the hell for?" "Because your coma was my fault." "Yours? The horseman beamed me, you didn't." "Hey, want to see something cool? Look what I found on my phone." Joey produced the device, hit a few buttons, and swiped his finger. An orange circle hung in a field of black, overexposed, something that had been moving fast when the flash caught it. "I was trying to get his picture, right? Like an idiot? Well, I didn't get him, but that is the pumpkin he threw at me." Jason stared at the blurry orange shape for a long time. "Cool. Cool? Can you imagine if we actually got a picture of the Headless Horseman? We'd be famous by now." He pocketed the phone. "Hey, do you want the rest of this turkey? It looks like bologna." "Tastes like bologna, too." He speared the slice anyway. "Look, this is going to sound weird, but I think I made you a target." "What do you mean?" "I made you a target by telling you about my gift. It's some sort of magical rule. If we reveal ourselves to a normal person, whoever we tell becomes a target for ghosts. And usually, they die." "And you told me anyway?" "No, I'd already told you. There was no way to untell you. Don't be mad. It all worked out, right? Right? Joey's expression had darkened. Give me a second here. And there's a bright side. What bright side? Now you'll have a gift too. Me? That's what your coma was. Some kind of transition. You got targeted, but you survived. You'll be a founder now, like Ichabod. You'll pass your gift to your kids like he passed his to me. Joey looked worried. What kind of gift will I get? People get gifts that complement their natural abilities. It could be anything. Anything? So, I could read minds? I guess. Turn purple and levitate? Probably not. Something that expresses the essential you. Then I'll have an actor's gift. What's an actor's gift? Jason shrugged. Super narcissism? Shut up. So you're not mad? Joey was shaking with excitement. Mad? This is the coolest thing ever! We'll be like the dynamic duo, fighting supernatural foes up and down the eastern seaboard. Jason laughed, feeling epic relief. I thought you'd be pissed. Nah. What's a little coma between friends? He took a bite out of a Nutter Butter, grinning madly. I'm going to be a superhero. But you can't tell anyone. Why not? Weren't you listening? Everyone we tell dies. You can't talk about your gift to anybody. But if they were targeted and lived, we could have our own X-Men. Yeah, or all your friends could die. Do you want to risk that? No, I guess not. But I don't do closets very well, you know? I came out at conception. Promise to keep it to yourself. Yeah. Joey shifted sideways and walked his sneakers up the brick. So, the essential me. Ooh, I know what gift I'll get. I'll get a singer's gift. What's a singer's gift? Jason shrugged. Superhuman drug tolerance? Shut up!